Hey guys, Hayden here again from Alarm System Store, and today we are going to be hooking up smoke detectors to our IQ Pro system. These are wired smoke detectors, so basically what I have here is a 2WB and a 4WB. These are the system sensor smoke detectors that we carry. I'm going to go over the wiring first. The wiring to the panel is always going to be the same for both 2-wire and 4-wire smoke detectors. However, your detectors may be different than what I'm going to show for these. These have a bit of a unique setup when it comes to the wiring. As you'll see right here, there's actually 2 positive terminals. Basically, for these system sensor smokes, this first one is a positive in terminal, and the second is a positive out terminal, which I'll explain a little bit more once we get there. But basically, your detectors might just have one positive, or perhaps even a totally different setup completely. But same basic principles are going to apply pretty much to all smokes. Just follow the instructions for your unit. Otherwise, though, like I said, the wiring to the panel is always going to be the same. So first off, I'm going to get these out of the way, and we are going to wire up the 2-wire smoke detector first, since they are simpler. So for the 2-wire smoke detector, you do only need 2 wires. So if you have a 4-pair like I do, just get rid of 2 of them. And for 2-wire detectors, you are always going to connect basically just positive and negative. 2-wire detectors are a bit unique in the sense that their power and their supervision for the wiring is on the same circuit. So you basically just have 2 wires, and that wire basically sends power to the unit, but it also supervises whether or not these detectors are opened or closed, which makes them simpler to hook up. However, it does mean you have to chain them from one to the next. So anytime you're using 2-wire detectors, you will not have different zones on your panel set to each individual smoke detector. You will have a smoke zone, which is all of your 2-wire smokes chained on a single input. So if you're using the system sensor smokes, this is all you have to do for the first smoke detector. Like I said, you're going to use the power in terminal, which is the first positive there, and then you're going to just connect it to negative. And that's all you do on the detector. Now, on the panel with IQ Pros, just like with the DSC Neo, you use the aux terminal and a PGM. I'll show this a little closer in a second, but basically right here is the aux2 positive and negative terminals, and then right next to it are PGM 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're going to take your red wire, and that is going to attach to aux2 plus. And then your black wire, or your negative, your ground, is going to connect to PGM2 on the IQ Pro. So on the panel, this is what it will look like. You'll have your red wire going to aux2 positive, and then your black wire is going to PGM2. If you connected this to aux1 plus, it wouldn't work, so just be careful and pay attention. Alright, so once that's done, that's all you would need to do for a 2-wire smoke detector. Now, real quick, if you wanted to connect a second smoke detector, you would take another pair of wires, so another black and red, and you are going to connect the positive to the second positive terminal here. And the negative is just going to go straight to the negative. Technically, we are wiring these in parallel. However, like I said, these units just use a unique wiring setup where it has 2 positive terminals. So if you were going to have a second detector, you would have it chained like so. You would have your first wire coming in, positive goes to the first positive, negative goes to the negative, and then for your second one, positive goes to the second positive on the outgoing power, and then negative goes to negative. So on the next detector, we're just going to pretend this is a 2-wire, so don't pay attention to these last 2 terminals here, but you'll just follow the same exact wiring that you did for the first one. So you will connect to positive 1, and then the negative right there. So if I was going to have 2 detectors hooked up, that is what it would look like. Now, on 2-wire smoke detectors, you are always going to need a resistor on the last detector in the chain. So you're going to use a resistor. This isn't the correct color code, but yours is going to be red, 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 gold. So that is a 2.2K resistor, and it should come with the panel. It should come with all the resistors you need, but essentially for 2-wire smokes, that is specifically what that 2.2K is made for. Now, to connect it, you will connect the resistor across the second positive terminal and the negative. And basically what that does is it closes down the end of the circuit, and it allows the panel to supervise the detectors by watching that resistance. So on the last detector in your 2-wire smoke chain, this is what it will look like. So you'll have the red wire going to +1, black going to the negative there, and then you'll have a resistor jumpered from terminal 2 to terminal 3, basically. So now we are wiring these in parallel. Like I mentioned, the first positive is just the power in, and then the second positive is power out. So you got power coming into first terminal, out from the second, into the first, and then that's what the resistor stops right there. It basically hits that end of line, which is your outgoing power, and basically completes the circuit. So pretty straightforward for 2-wire smokes. They're pretty simple. So I'm going to move on to 4-wire smokes, and then we'll get into how to program them in the panel. All right, so moving on to 4-wire smoke detectors. So with 4-wire smokes, you don't have power and supervision on the same circuit. You have a power circuit, and then you also have a zone circuit, which is these last 2 terminals here. So the way you're going to wire up a 4-wire detector is use the red and black the same way you would on a 2-wire. So red goes to +1, black goes to the negative, and then you're going to connect your yellow and green wires here to the NO and the C terminals there. So for your first 4-wire smoke detector, this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have red going into terminal 1, black to terminal 3, yellow or white to terminal 4, and then green to terminal 5. Now in the panel, you're going to connect power the same way you did the 2-wire smokes, but you're also going to have to connect your zone circuit, which is your yellow and green wires. So red is going to go to aux2 positive right here. Black is going to go to PGM2, and then you are going to have to select a zone that your smokes are going to connect to. So the reason you would use 4-wire smokes is so that you can actually zone each one of these out. So instead of chaining them like we did the 2-wire, we can actually just connect all of them back to the panel using home runs and connect these zone wires to a different zone for each detector. So you could have this be like your living room smoke, you could have, a bedroom smoke, so on and so forth, and you can have them each individually labeled in the panel. Now you can also do sort of a combo where you have chains of 4-wire smokes, and each chain attaches to a separate zone. So you could have like 3 smoke detectors on zone 1 that are for your first floor, 3 smoke detectors for floor 2, which are on zone 2, and there's basically 3 detectors chained on each zone, so on and so forth. So 4-wire gives you a lot more adaptability. However, there is a lot more wiring involved and a lot more planning. So I'm going to just go ahead and connect these to zone 1 right here. Now, as you probably guessed, we also need a resistor. So whenever you're wiring 4-wire smokes, you're going to use the resistor of the panel. So each panel you're going to run across is going to have its own resistor value that you need. The IQ Pro uses 5.6K resistors, which are just your basic zone supervision resistors, but that's what you're going to use on 4-wire smokes because you are using a zone for supervision. So to connect that, you're just going to attach it to the zone circuit right here, and you'll just jumper from the NO terminal to the C terminal. So just like that. So on the panel, I'll go ahead and show you that up close so you can see it as well. aux2 plus, PGM2, and then the zone that you're using. And that is all you have to do for the wiring for your smoke detectors. Oh, real quick, if I did want to carry on a chain of 4-wire smokes, you would basically use +2 going out to the next smoke, and then these 3 wires are going to stay the same between each detector. So basically, as you go, you'll just go from the panel to +1, +2, out to +1 on the next detector, so on and so forth. These 3 wires will always stay the same. It'll just be black to black, yellow to yellow, green to green. And the resistor goes on the last detector in that chain. If you put it here, all the detectors after this are not going to be supervised. So make sure that you put the resistor on the last smoke in each individual chain. So now that I've covered everything regarding wiring, we're going to jump over to the programming of the panel. So give me a second, I'll pull up the app, get the screen recording going, and I'll show you guys how to set up the PGM for both 2-wire and 4-wire smokes, and then I'll show you how to set up a smoke zone as well. So I will be right back. Alright, so I got the app pulled up. Basically, you just need to get signed in with either the installer code or the dealer code. So plug that in. So once you get to the dashboard, I'm going to show you how to set up the PGMs first. Basically, you're always going to be setting up PGM 2 for smoke detectors. Anyway, to get to that section, click Config down here, click Installation, Devices, and then PGM Outputs. It's got the little lock symbol there. And by default, you will always have these 4 programmable outputs, or PGMs. And what you're going to do is just click on PGM2, because that's what we're using there. You can give it a name if you want to, but basically you're just going to hit the plus button down here. And then if you are using 2-wire smoke detectors, all you have to do is click 2-wire smoke right there. You can, like I said, plug in a name. There's no reason to set up a chime or voice prompts. Voice prompts leave on because that way, if you have like an IQ remote, it will announce that there is a fire alarm, and then it will go into an alarm. The chime, though, that won't have any function with smoke detectors. So once you're done with that, you just click Save up there at the top, and then you are done. All right, now for 4-wire smokes, setting up PGM2 is a little bit more difficult. You are going to have to basically set up the PGM function so that it is constantly providing power to your smoke detectors. And then whenever you trigger the PGM, it shuts down power for 2 to 3 seconds. And then that's what basically resets your smoke detectors. So once these are triggered, they are latching, meaning they will stay triggered until it loses power. So the way to reset them is to cut off power for 2 to 3 seconds, and then when they come back up, they'll be in a disarmed state, basically. So the way to create that, there's a couple ways you can do that in the panel. The most common that I've seen is using a system rule. So when you click plus to add your rule, click system. Under system state, leave that as disarm. Basically what that means is whenever we disarm, it is going to trigger that PGM, which is going to reset your smokes. Now, like I said, there's a couple ways you can do this. If you don't want your smokes resetting every single time you disarm your system, don't use this, but this works perfectly fine for 99% of people. For the next option though, under output type, you need to set this to inverted. So normal operation is when the PGM is triggered, it provides power. So what we need to do is provide constant power and remove power when it's triggered. So by inverting that, that's what we've done. Under action, this is how long the PGM is going to stay triggered. So if it's latching, it's going to stay triggered forever when we disarm. We don't want that. So set timer, click seconds. It should be set that way already. And then just change the value. You can leave it at 5 seconds, it's perfectly fine, but you only need 2 or 3 seconds to actually reset smoke detectors. So the way we have it here, upon disarm, the panel is going to shut down power for 2 seconds to all the smokes connected to PGM2. That is perfectly fine. I have to select a name, GG, click save, and now the function rule for PGM2 is active. All right, so now I'll show you the other option for setting up PGM2. And to delete a rule created for PGMs, just swipe the rule that you've created to the left, click delete. So if you do the disarm and you don't care for it, you can delete that one, and I'll show you how to do the second, which is using a command. So if you choose command here, it's going to give you 4 options under the command section. So you can choose command output 1 through 4. Now by default, DSC Neo keypads are going to have a command output 2 button that is actually programmed into the keypad already. So that's already set up for you. So use command output 2, same as PGM2, and the output type and the action are going to be exactly the same. So you need to set this to inverted, and then you need to set the action to a timer of 2 seconds. Now this works great if you are going to be using DSC Neo keypads, either the button style or the touchscreen, because like I said, they already come with the command output programmed into the keypad, so all you gotta do is hit a button and you're done. It'll trigger the reset. However, you do want to use the disarm that I showed you a minute ago if you are going to be using IQ remote keypads, or if you are going to be using any of they have the new Power G like touchpad keypads. If you're not going to be using DSC keypads, basically, because the IQ remotes and those other keypads don't have a built-in command output 2, so instead of trying to create one and doing a bunch of extra stuff, just set it so that when you disarm the panel, it does the reset automatically. However, like I mentioned, this is great if you're going to be using DSC keypads. So, those are the 2 rules that you can create to power 4-wire smoke detectors. Now, before we are done with the 4-wire smoke, we do have to go into the security sensors section of our panel. So you can get there by just backing out and following the normal route, or if you're at the home screen, you can just hit this arrow here. It takes you right to the security sensors. And since I connected those to zone 1, we're actually going to be changing our front door, which is what we set up the other day. And we're going to change this from a front door to a smoke sensor. So under sensor type, you're going to need to open that up, select smoke detector there. A sensor name, we'll delete that, and then we'll just do smoke detector. Keep it easy. Go back a page, and then the sensor group is always going to be 26 smoke or heat. So smokes and heats, they basically do the same thing. They trigger a fire alarm on the panel, and if you have central monitoring, it's going to dispatch the fire department. So you don't need to set the sensor group. So after the sensor group, like I said, chime isn't going to matter, so it doesn't matter what chime type you use. Leave voice prompts on. Don't mess with the sensor input because like I said, it has to have an end-of-line resistor. It's already set that way, and then you're done. Just click save, and now our zone 1 is set up for a smoke detector. So if I backed out of this and basically booted up my system and got everything ready to go, what would happen is, like I said, PGM2 is going to power the smoke, and then the zone wiring with the resistor is going to tell zone 1 that it's good. If you have any issues on smoke detectors, like if you have a smoke trouble or fire trouble, 9 times out of 10 it is the wiring or the resistor placement. Whenever you're wiring in end-of-line resistors, make sure that you do so very cleanly. As you can see, don't have any insulation under your terminals. Like my yellow one's really close right there, but I can see the edge of the insulation before the terminal. You want flat, just copper wire and the resistor touching inside the terminals. If you have insulation in there, it can mess it up. Make sure your resistors are tight so that they're not moving around. Make sure all your wire is good. But if you run into a smoke trouble, basically just power down, check all your wiring, boot it back up until the smoke trouble goes away. Once it does, you know your wiring is all good, and you should be good to go from there. But that is all there is to talk about when it comes to smoke detectors. Now, if you're using a Cosmod module, you're going to want to wait until I put out the Cosmod video. That one is quite different. It uses sort of the same principle as the 4-wire smokes. However, there's a bit more to it. So basically, I'm going to do a specific video just for the Cosmod, but if you're using regular smoke detectors, this is exactly how you would do so. Now remember, not all of your smokes are going to wire up exactly the way that these do, so just make sure you double check your manual for your smoke, make sure you get your terminals outlined properly, and you follow any steps for chaining additional sensors, so on and so forth. So otherwise though, that is where I'm going to call it. So hopefully that was informative for you guys. If you don't mind, leave a comment, like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, by all means reach out to us. We have the IQ Pro, the smoke detectors, anything you could need to set up an IQ Pro system on our site. Just reach out to us, let us know what you're looking for, and we'll help you get it put together. All right, that's going to do it for me. So like I said, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.